There is a man sitting at a kitchen table at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. He is 43 years old. He has a good job, a mortgage that is mostly under control, and 2 kids who will need college funding in about 6 years. He opens his retirement account. He stares at the number. Then he quietly closes the laptop and goes to bed. No panic, no drama, just a slow, heavy recognition that the math does not seem to add up. If you have ever sat at that table, this video is for you. Because what most financial content will not tell you is that starting late is not the same as starting wrong. The tools available to a 40-year-old are fundamentally different from the ones available at 25, and most people never learn how to use them. Today I am going to walk you through a framework I call the Quiet Wealth Lever. If that interests you, subscribe now because the content I produce here is designed specifically for people in their building years who want clarity, not cheerleading. Let us begin with the first question. Why does conventional financial advice almost always fail the late starter? You have probably heard some version of the standard playbook. Spend less, save more, invest early, stay diversified, let compound interest do its thing. And all of that is true. The problem is that it is built around a 25-year timeline. When you are 42 and you have 20 to 23 productive years ahead of you before a traditional retirement window, the mathematics of passive accumulation alone becomes strained. You need something to amplify the rate of change without multiplying the risk. That is where a lever comes in. A physical lever does not generate force from nothing. It does not defy physics. What it does is allow you to apply the force you already have at a more effective angle and distance from the fulcrum, so the output is disproportionate to the input. Quiet wealth works the same way. It is not about finding some secret loophole. It is about correctly positioning the assets, income streams, and tax structures you already have access to so that each dollar you deploy works harder than a dollar deployed without that positioning. The 4 components of the Quiet Wealth Lever are fulcrum, force, extension, and load. We are going to go through each one. And by the end, you will understand why a focused 40-year-old with a clear framework will consistently outperform a distracted 30-year-old with a big salary. The first component is fulcrum. What is your actual financial foundation right now, and is it positioned correctly? Most people in their 40s and early 50s have accumulated more than they realize. There is equity in a home. There may be a 401k that has been quietly growing for 15 years. There might be a small business, a professional skill set that commands real market value, or a network that took decades to build. The problem is not the absence of resources. The problem is that those resources are positioned poorly relative to where the man actually wants to go. Think about it this way. A lever with the fulcrum at the wrong point accomplishes almost nothing. You could push down with tremendous effort and barely move the load. Moving the fulcrum changes everything, and it costs nothing extra in terms of effort. Financially, repositioning your fulcrum means doing an honest audit, not an emotional one. A structural one. Where is your equity sitting idle? Where is your income being taxed at a higher rate than it needs to be? Where are your current assets pointing in directions that made sense 10 years ago, but no longer align with your actual goal? The quiet wealth approach starts here. Not with a new investment product. Not with a side hustle that will consume your Saturdays. It starts with a clear-eyed inventory of what you already have and a deliberate repositioning of those existing pieces. That repositioning is the fulcrum shift. Once it is in place, everything downstream becomes more efficient. And that brings us to the second component. The second component is force. This is your deployable income. And the question here is not how much you are making. The question is, how much of what you make is actually available to work for you each month? Most people in this age range are carrying what I call invisible load. These are the recurring financial obligations that accumulated gradually over the years and are now simply accepted as fixed costs. Streaming subscriptions, upgraded insurance plans that were never reshopped, loan structures that made sense in 2018 and have never been refinanced, spending patterns that reflect a social identity from a previous decade. Every dollar that is tied up in invisible load is a dollar that cannot be placed on the lever. The goal of the force component is not deprivation. It is precision. You are not cutting everything. You are auditing with intention and redirecting a meaningful monthly figure, even if it is $500 or $800, toward deployable capital. When that capital is then applied through the correctly positioned fulcrum, it does not behave like savings. It behaves like fuel. And this is the point in the framework where I want to introduce something we are building for exactly this kind of strategic work. The Trip2 Wealth Command Center, a Google Sheets system that brings your income, spending, investing, and net worth together in one place. It is your personal strategy hub, designed to expose money leaks, highlight growth opportunities, and show how small decisions compound into real wealth. Join the early access list below and secure a discount as an early supporter. The tool will be out soon. Every wealth system needs a strategy, and this is where yours begins. The Command Center is designed to do the analytical heavy lifting so you can spend your mental energy on decisions, not data collection. Now, once your force is clean and directed, we move to the component that actually creates the late starter's advantage. The third component is extension. This is the arm of the lever, and in physical mechanics, a longer arm means more output from the same input. In financial terms, extension is the intelligent use of leverage, time multiplication, and tax-advantaged structures that allow your positioned capital to reach farther than it normally would. Now I want to be very direct about what leverage means in this context, because the word carries baggage. This is not about borrowing recklessly to speculate. It is about understanding the specific forms of extension available to a 40-plus investor. The first form is tax-advantaged account maximization. A 50-year-old in the United States has access to catch-up contributions in 401k accounts and IRAs. Those limits are meaningfully higher than what a 30-year-old can contribute. Most people know this exists, and almost nobody uses the full capacity. That is an extension that costs nothing except intentionality. The second form of extension is real estate equity recycling. If you have substantial equity in a primary residence, and you are not strategically managing that equity, it is sitting idle on the wrong side of the lever. This does not mean cash-out refinancing to fund consumption. It means understanding when and how to position that equity into assets that generate income or appreciation, under structures that are tax-efficient. The third form is income extension through skill arbitrage. A man at 45 has a depth of professional knowledge that has real market value beyond his current employer. Consulting arrangements, advisory roles, fractional executive positions, these are not side hustles. They are professional extensions of a credential that already exists. When that incremental income is channeled directly into the lever rather than absorbed into lifestyle, it becomes extension. Each of these three forms creates a longer arm. More reach from the same applied force at the same correctly positioned fulcrum. But the lever still needs a load. And that is where we close the framework. The fourth component is load, and this is the question that most financial content never actually asks. What are you building this for? Not in a motivational sense, in a structural one. Because the load you choose determines how you calibrate every other component. A person building toward a specific monthly income replacement figure needs a different lever configuration than a man building toward asset transfer, or a man whose goal is financial independence at a specific date versus a man whose goal is simply to stop worrying about money by 58. The load component forces you to convert a vague aspiration into a number. Not a dream number. A target number? What monthly income from assets, not from labor, would constitute financial freedom for you specifically given your actual cost of life? Once you have that number, you work backward through extension, force, and fulcrum to see what the lever needs to look like. This is the part where I want to ask you something directly. Type the word lever in the comments right now if you have never actually calculated your personal financial independence number with that kind of precision. Because if the number is not specific, The lever has no load, and a lever with no load is just a stick on a rock. Clarity about the load is what transforms the framework from an interesting concept into an actionable system. And the work you do in these 4 components is what separates the man who keeps saying he will get serious soon from the man who quietly builds real wealth between 40 and 60. One final thing worth saying before we close. There is a cognitive trap that affects late starters more than almost any other group. Psychologists call it loss aversion, but in this context it shows up as a specific behavior pattern. The person who feels behind financially will often unconsciously avoid looking at his financial situation clearly because the discomfort of the gap feels worse than the discomfort of not knowing. So he stays in a state of productive ignorance, working hard, spending reasonably, doing roughly the right things, but never applying the lever because he has not committed to the clarity required to use it. The quiet wealth lever only works for the man willing to sit with the full picture. That is not a personality trait. It is a decision, and you can make it today, and there you have it. The quiet wealth lever, a framework for catching up after 40 without noise, without gimmicks, and without pretending time was not spent. The fulcrum is your current asset position, correctly aligned. The force is your deployable monthly capital, freed from invisible load. The extension is the smart structural reach of tax-advantaged accounts, equity strategy, and skill-based income. The load is your precise, calculated financial independence number that makes every other component purposeful. Here is the philosophical reframe. Starting late is not a handicap. It is a different entry point with different tools. A man who learns to use a lever at 42 can move more weight than a man who pushes with his hands at 25. Your action challenge today is simple. Before this week ends, write down your load number. What monthly income from assets would change your life? Start there. Disclaimer. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Please consult a qualified professional before making any financial decisions. And there you have it. If you found value today, I highly recommend watching my next video. The 10-year compounding rule, why 90% fail. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, feel free to leave your comment below, especially if this video made you think differently. I appreciate your support more than you know. Until next time, stay consistent, stay patient, and stay winning. See you in the next one, Money Magician.